Hey, personality people. This is Ashley, personality theorist, and today I want to talk about the compatibility between different Enneagram types, as seen most frequently in the population by life coach Julie Sheeposh on YouTube. As you might hear, any Enneagram type can get along with any other Enneagram type as long as both of those types have healthy levels of psychological health. But some types get along most naturally with others, as we can see that they naturally attract each other and they're often occurring in the population. These combinations are intimate relationships, romantic relationships, but I'd imagine perhaps we can see also the correlation between also friendships too. I am so excited about how I presented this information because I've never seen it done before. I coordinated the different Enneagram types on a XY plane, like in math. It is so cool. I love it. I love it. Now, you'll notice that some types need to have, or not need to, but they get along really well with their own type. For example, 1 and 1, or 3 and 3, 8 and 8. Because these types are so, I'm trying to find the right word, rigid, or they really know what they want. They're really strong-minded types, so they would get along well with another type that thinks just like them. So we're going to kind of go along here. I want to also point out another general trend that the cooler types, the more rational, detached types, can sometimes get along really well with the more emotional, heartfelt types that tend to be more reactive and temperamental. For our purposes here, I identified the cooler, detached types as 1, 3, 5, 8, and 9, and the more emotional types as 2, 4, 6, and 7. So let's just go along here type by type. First, let's start with, we had talked about the double types where one gets along really well with another one. But unsurprisingly, 1 also gets along really well with type 3, because we know that these are hardworking types. They like things done a certain way. So in that way, they would have a lot in common, but they would be different enough that they can learn from each other. Another cool trend is sometimes we see a type that is like another type because it shares a wing. So a 1-wing 9 often gets along really well with a 9-wing 1. And I'm just going to mark this stuff off so we don't repeat the same information. Okay. Moving on to type 2. Type 2 often gets along really well, no surprise here, with type 8, because 2s can be really emotional and they like the 8 to be strong and to know what they want in life. The 8 kind of protects the 2, who can sometimes be more emotional and can find guidance in the 8. And in the same way, that 8 can learn from the 2, because as we know, the 8 integrates to 2 to access the more vulnerable parts of themselves. So that's a really sweet relationship, the 2 and the 8. They often get along together. Moving on, type 3. We know type 3 gets along really well with type 3. And here we also have that type 3 is often seen with type 6. That's interesting. Type 6 loves to work hard, just like a type 3. So they're both really more conventional. They see what needs to be done according to generally the rules of society. And I can see in that way they would have a lot in common. Threes and sevens also get along really well. Threes would offset the sevens' impulse, fun-loving nature to just have a good time, while threes want to succeed and be practical. So I can see how those two types would complement each other. Moving on, type 4, this really surprised me actually. A type 4 and a type 6, wow. I would think that these two types might just kind of, I have a very strong 4 in myself. I don't mean to offend, but circle the drain. I mean, I can just see a 4 and a 6 freaking out together because the 6 is going to be second guessing themselves, being anxious, and the 4 can be just lost in their emotions. So it's really interesting how these two get along together. And by the way, all these types here, they're mutually beneficial. Where one type likes another type, and that type likes the other type. But 4s and 6s, how do they get along? I mean, I would think that they're both really sensitive and compassionate toward the other's sadness, toward the other's anxiety. And yet they're different enough from each other that they're able to not only console each other, but learn from each other. Because when unhealthy, the 4 can think about what's missing in a situation, think about how the present is not lining up with a happy past. And contrast that with the 6, who can be anxious about the future and let that rob them of the peace in the present. So that's really interesting to me, 4s and 6s. We're about halfway through now. Interesting. So 5s are kind of more of an acquired taste. I love my 5s. But 5s and 7s get along really well. And that's an interesting combination because 5s move to 7 in unhealth and 7s move to 5 in health. So when that's another thing, when the lines are shared during integration and disintegration, then there's a lot in common there for these types. I know the 5 generally is really introverted and the 7 is really extroverted. So they complement each other in that way. And I think the 5 would like to join the 7 on their adventures, and I think the 7 would help the 5 get out there more. Fives and 7s, wow. It's just amazing how such different types can just find each other and be happy together. It's so beautiful. Okay, sixes. Okay, we have a 6-wing 7 and a 7-wing 6. We've got your defender and your buddy archetype in that combination. Very heady energy in that these types, you've got the hardworking 6 and the fun 7 complementing themselves in that way. They are both thinker types, but we know that the 6 is supposedly detached from thinking. That's I know 6s will tend to overthink. I'll have to check that, but these two get along. 7 likes to have fun, and you mix that with a 6 who wants to be secure. I mean, you've got a balance and a best of both worlds there. Okay, we've got the 6-wing 8, the 6 and the 8 couple. You've got that strong 8 who's ready to just do what needs to be done to succeed in society. And then you've got the 6 who would appreciate the guidance of the 8. And that 6, as I said, works hard too. So while the 8 will be impulsed to act immediately, I think the 6 would be good in that it can get that 8 to pause and just think about what to do before actually doing it. Actually analyze the situation and slow down. Because that 8 can be pretty strong and impulsive. Okay, and then we have the 6 and the 9. This does not surprise me. 9, as Tom LaHue, a YouTube Enneagram person would say, is like, a 9 is like vanilla ice cream. So we've got the 6 who can have a lot of anxiety, matched with a 9 who is just naturally balanced, at peace, centered. They would balance each other out. Maybe sometimes the 9 can be too comfortable, and the 6 needs to get that 9 out of its comfort zone so they can get more things done. So the 6 and 9 is a combination that's often seen in the population. Okay, we're almost done here. We have 2 more couples. We've got the 7 and the 9. 7 just wants to go out, have a great time. 9 likes its comforts at home. So this reminds me of the 5-7 combination where they balance each other out. And then finally, our super intense double 8 combo. We got 2 fighters. I would not want to mess with an 8 and an 8. Not that I want to mess with a 1 and a 1 or a 3 and a 3. That is a lot of action. That is a lot of action and assertiveness and aggression. So, let me read those couples again, these mutually beneficial couples, one more time. 1 and 1, 1 and 3, 1 wing 9, 9 wing 1, 2 and 8, 3 and 1, 3 and 3, 3 and 6, 3 and 7, 4 and 6, 5 and 7, 6 and 3, 6 and 4, 7 wing 6, 6 wing 7, 6 and 8, 6 and 9, 7 and 9, 7 wing 6, 6 wing 7, 7 and 5, 7 and 3, 8 and 2, 8 and 6, 8 and 8, 9 and 7, 9 and 6, and 9 wing 1, 1 wing 9. That might have been a little bit difficult to hear, so let me write it down in the comments or just a description below. Finally, I thought this was interesting. There are some types that get along with other types, but that second type, might not get along so well with the other type. So we have some acquired tastes here. The 1 gets along really well with the 7 because that 1 wants to have fun like a 7. The 2 gets along really well with the 5 and the 6. I can see the 2 being calmed down by the 5, and the 2 freaking out with the 6, but they're there for each other in their emotions. They can empathize with the other. And then finally, we have the 4 with the 7, which is really interesting because 7s are offbeat and emotional just like the 4, but 7s are more extroverted. And then we have the 4 and the 8, where the 8 takes charge and the 4 is guided by the 8. So it's like the 8 is protecting the 4. I hope that you found this helpful. And again, any type can get along with any type as long as both types are healthy. Because as types get more healthy, they are less easy to be distinguished as a particular type. After all, the Enneagram is made up of multiple types, and every individual has every type within them.